Welcome to step 5. Holy cow, you have made it this far. Let me ask you a couple questions before we really get into the meat of today. Would you hire you? So based on your activities, based on how you're playing this game, based on how you're showing up every week in your business or every day in your business, would you hire you? So a great question that someone asked the other day is they said, how much would I have paid myself by the hour yesterday? Based on my performance, based on what I got done, would I have paid myself? What kind of wage would I have paid myself? And it may or may not have been what I'm anticipating to earn, right? Do you need to level that up? Another great question to ask yourself is, if you were going to hire you, right? What would the expectations be? Or think about this way: if you hired someone else to do your job, what would your expectations for them be? And are you living up to those expectations? Sometimes we need to fire ourselves and rehire ourselves with some clear expectations. So today we're going to dive into some amazing things. We're going to talk about the importance of goals. And sometimes when I say goals, people go, oh crap, I know I need to have goals. And yet here's the reality: most people know in their mind that they should have goals, and yet they haven't written them down, clarified them, and implemented them into your life, right? So many people have hallucinations, not goals. So I'm going to give you the difference. Then we're going to talk about rejection. That sounds fun. And then we're going to get into how to overcome that, how to push through some of these objections. So get ready for the ride. This is going to be packed. So we talk about this concept of goals. And the reality is, I would rather be at the bottom rung of a ladder that's leaned up against the wall I want to climb than at the top rung of another ladder that's leaned up against the wrong wall. Are you with me? So much of this is getting clear on where you want to go. A goal properly set, Zig Ziglar says, I think he said, a goal properly set is halfway reached. Most people will go further in a year with clear goals than other people will go in 5 years with vague goals. And you have all these different areas of goals. And I wish that there was 7 different words for goal, because it's kind of it's a little ominous, right? And yet when I talk about goals, I ask you to get clear on where you're going. And you can have, small goals that are clear or vague. You can have big goals that are vague or big goals that are clear. And then you gotta have those big stretch goals. So when I talk about goals, what I'm diving into is, what I want you to have is, instead of having a small vague goal or a small clear goal, I want you to have a big clear goal. There's lots of people that have big goals, and yet they're so vague that no wonder they don't hit them. So I want you to have a big clear goal. And I'm gonna walk through what that means, because most people think a goal is, right, I want to pay my house off in 10 years. Awesome. That's without a plan, without having some clarity around that. That's a hallucination, not a goal. There's a huge difference. So let's dive into this. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do around goals. And I want you to think about, just for right now, just think about for the next year, what are some of your goals? And we're going to turn it from a intention or a dream into an actual goal, into an actual reality. So for most of us, we need to set goals in 6 or 7 different categories. Right? Probably the first category is, as a person, what do I want to achieve? What are some personal achievements I want to accomplish the next year? Maybe I want to write a book, or maybe I want to learn another language, whatever it is. So do what I would call a mind dump, which means I'm going to give you the 7 different categories. And I want you to go to that category and just spend a couple minutes going, here's all the things I'd love to accomplish in the next year. So maybe you've got a category for personal achievements. Maybe you have a category for your health. How do I want to be physically, health-wise for the next year? What do I want to get at? What are some of my business goals for the next year? Do I want to add to my team? Do I want to grow? Do I want to get another assistant? Whatever it is, what are those business goals? Ask yourself, what are some of my maybe spiritual or contribution goals? How do I want to be spiritually? How do I want to give back over this next year? And dump all the stuff in your mind. I want you to write it all out. And then you can ask yourself, what are some of my relationship goals for next year? And relationships, that may be 2 or 3 different categories, right? Maybe it's with my spouse, my kids, my parents. Maybe it's in my friendships. I want you to get clear on what are some of your goals in each one of those categories. Maybe you add on material possessions, right? And you write down, what's some of the stuff that I want to have the next year. So I want you to find out, what are those 6 or 7 categories for you: personal and material, financial, business, relationships, giving back. Go to each one of those categories and spend just a couple minutes going, what would I love to see happen in this category in the next year? Which ones are really ones you want to make goals, not just intentions or not just dreams? And then ask yourself in some of those, why is this important to you? And here's one of the most powerful things you can do. And I think that this is a tool that you can implement in your life. Look at some of those goals and go, why is that important to me? someone the other day, so it said, I want to build a cabin on a lake. And I go, awesome. And yet they almost felt guilty about it. Because I don't even know why I want a cabin on a lake. I feel like I want that. And I go, cool. What would so here's what I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to dive maybe 4 or 5 levels deep into this. So what I had them do is I had them go, what's important about a cabin on a lake? Like, what would that do for me? And they go, well, it would be a great place for me to spend time with the family. Okay, awesome. Keep going. What's important about spending time with the family? Well, for me, quality time, especially at somewhere that's kind of off-site, away from the rest of the world, helps us really become a great family. And I go, cool, what's important about that? And they go, that's just one of my core beliefs is that I want to be a great dad, or I want to be a great mom, whatever it is. And so all of a sudden it went from I want a cabin on a lake for some reason to, so I'm clear that a cabin on a lake would facilitate me building great relationships with my family. And that's one of the most important things to me. So as you're going through these things, ask yourself in 4 or 5 of these that are really important to you, dive deep and ask yourself that why question. Why is this important to me? What would that do for me? What would that do for me? Why is that so important? Because I want you to get clear on the emotion and the belief behind some of these goals. See, too often we go, I want to have $200,000 in the bank or whatever it is. And then I go, why is that important? And people can't answer that. And so you've got to do the work to get deep to figure out why is that important to you. So someone the other day, they go, I want to have $200,000 in the bank. And I go, why is that important? And they go, I don't, their first answer was, I don't know. And they go, well, I guess I would feel more secure. And I go, awesome. What would feeling more secure do for you? Why is that important to you? And they go, well, it would allow me to honestly to sleep better at night. And I go, what would that do for you? And they go, honestly, I think if I had $200,000 just sitting in the bank, knowing that any emergency can be taken care of, I would sleep better at night. And it's important because I think I'd be a better parent. I think I'd be a better spouse. So all of a sudden we went from money just in and of itself to what it really means to you. Here's one of the things that I want you to get. Money is not a motivator. Money is a facilitator. Right? Money, nobody wants money just for money's sake. They want money because of what it allows them to do. So I want you to dive into some of these goals and figure out what's the why behind it. Because once you figure out what the why behind it is, that empowers you to move forward. So you get there. Here's why I think it's so critical for you to turn these into SMART goals. Robert Berlitz said this. He said, we are kept from our goal, not so often by obstacles, but by an easier path to a lesser goal. You've got to have a clear goal that you turn into a SMART goal so you don't get distracted and drift to a lesser goal. See, most people don't decide to not go after their goals. They just drift away from them over time if they haven't turned into a SMART goal and if they haven't set up some accountability behind it. So once you turn this into a SMART goal, then go get some accountability. If my SMART goal is to lose weight and how much and it's measurable and here's what I'm going to do it by, then I'm going to go get some accountability in my life. I'm going to maybe hire a trainer or get a coach, whatever I'm going to do. I'm going to get some accountability in my life to make sure I stay on the path to hit that goal. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do. Sit down, go through this process, write out some of your goals, figure out why behind them, turn them into SMART goals, and then get some accountability around them. And I'll tell you what, you do that and you will be light years ahead of where most are. Okay, now that you've got your goals, there's some stuff you're gonna have to go through, right? Every goal has a price, and you've got to pay a price no matter what. If you have a big goal, there's a bigger price. So one of the things that you're gonna have to push through, no matter what business you're in, is some rejection. You're gonna have to push through some rejection in this business, right? You're gonna have to push through some people saying no. Now, here's the cool thing, though. You get to choose. If you let that get to you, you get to choose what rejection means to you. So here's what's interesting. For most people, there's a great book that was written by Robert Fenton, and he talked about, right, go for no. And he totally changed the script. He totally changed the story that I was telling myself about rejection. See, most of us go, rejection is bad. When people reject me, it's terrible. If somebody says no to me, it's going to be really painful. And he said, he helped me change my reality on this. And he goes, look, people will say no. Right? As you're making your calls, as you're doing your lead generation, some people say no. And you know what? Some people say no just because they think that's what they're supposed to say. How often have you gone to a store, somebody asked if they could help you, you actually did need help, and yet your automatic response was like, no, I don't need help. We say that all the time. And yet there's a little part of our mind that struggles with somebody saying no to us or somebody, quote unquote, rejecting us. Yet here's what's amazing. Your income, and this is huge, your income will be in direct proportion to the amount of rejection you're okay with. If the more rejection you're okay with, the more money you're going to make. See, the reality is the fear of rejection is holding people back for their dreams. It's holding people back from what they can ultimately have. The fear of someone saying no to them is causing them to say no to their dreams. What if your fear of rejection was the only thing standing between you and success? And what if you could do something about it? See, the reality is rejection is most of it is made up in our mind, right? I used to tell myself that all the time when I was calling an expired or for sale by owner. I'd call them and they go, no, I don't want your help. And I'd hang up the phone and I'd get all upset about it. Right? And I'd go, oh, this is terrible. And then my aha moment came when I realized that I could literally probably meet that person at Nordstrom's an hour later and they would have no idea who I was. The reality was they weren't even rejecting me so much as a person as they were just rejecting any phone call coming in, right? And yet, if I could get out of my own way and push through some of that rejection, my world would open up. My goals in my life would open up. So let me give you a couple of my favorite quotes on this. And John Wayne, right, one of my favorite cowboys, said something to the effect of, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and saddling up anyway. Unsuccessful people wait for the fear to subside. They go, when the fear goes away, then I'll take action, right? Successful people go, look, the reality is the fear only subsides. The fear only goes away after I go through. There's no, if you want to build self-confidence, you build self-confidence not by reading a bunch of quotes on Facebook. You build self-confidence by pushing through something that you were afraid of doing or something that you haven't done before. And you gain self-confidence on the other side by being proud of the person that pushed through and did that. Are you with me? So you've got to be the person that pushes through, right? Because on the other side is self-confidence. On the other side is the person you're proud of. Most of the people I know, what they're most proud of is a time in their life where they felt the pain and they did it anyway because the goal was big enough. So if you struggle with this fear of rejection, if you struggle with this fear of picking up the phone, I'm going to ask you, which is going to be bigger? Is the fear going to be bigger or is your dream going to be bigger? And only you get to make the decision. So here's one more thing you can do around this. You can reframe it. What if you began to tell yourself that rejection was actually a good thing? Right? So we talked in video 4 about how for most real estate agents, every 80 contacts gets them a closed piece of business. So imagine if my mindset was, look, for every 80 contacts, I get a closed piece of business. A closed piece of business, let's say it's worth $8,000 to me. That means I got to go through 79 or 68, 79, whatever it is, no's to get $8,000. So now from now on, instead of looking at it as a no, I'm going, I am one no closer to my goal of 80 because I know that once I get 80, I'm gonna have a close piece of business. What if you realize that every no is worth $100 to you, right? And you go, you're on the phone, somebody says no, you go, boom, $100, right? I just gotta get 79 more of these, and I know there's a check for $8,000 waiting for me. See, you get to tell the story. Don't be a victim of the story. Create the story. No's are just on the way to success, and the more no's you're willing to collect, the more success you're going to achieve, right? So be willing to push through this. Phase number 2 is dealing with objections. Guess what? We're going to get some objections in this business. If you're in any business worthwhile, you're going to get some objections. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're building houses, painting toes, doing whatever. You're going to experience some objections, right, as you go through this journey. So here, I'm going to give you several principles around objections that are going to change the way you think about objections. They're going to change the way you approach them. So first off, and this one is huge for you, an objection is just a question. Now, I want you to like needle on that for a second. An objection is just a question. See, when somebody goes to you and they go, you know what? I don't want to pay a 6% or 7% commission. What are they really saying? Underneath the objection, what they're really saying is, I don't understand why paying this much is a benefit to me. Right? Somebody comes to you and they go, I don't want to pay that interest rate. I'd rather go with this other company that's charging me less. What they're really saying is, I don't understand. My question is, why would it be worth it to me to pay more? If you can get out of defense mode and realize an objection oftentimes is just a question. So if you can take yourself out of it for a moment and ask yourself, what's the question behind this objection? Somebody says, I don't want to list with you because I think this other company can do a better job. What I want you to realize is it's not so much of an objection as is they're asking, what do you do different or better than this other company? When you stop getting defensive over objections and you start answering questions, your life will change. Here's another thing about objections. This is huge. Is sometimes when somebody gives us an objection, it's not always an objection. So learn to tell the difference between an objection and a condition. See, a condition might be, we don't want to list the house for 6 months. right? So somebody could say, we don't want to list the house 6 months. And you've got to ask more questions to discover, is that an objection or a condition? A condition would be, we promised our son who's in high school that we're not going to list the home until he graduates. And he graduates in 6 months, then we'll put the home on the market. That's more of a condition than it is an objection, right? An objection would be, we just think the market's going to be better in 6 months. So what you've got to do as an epic consultant is ask more questions. So you know, is this a condition or is this an objection? Does that make sense? And really understanding what is the objection. You know, somebody said one time, they go, the issue is never the issue. A lot of times the objection they give you isn't the real objection. So you've got to learn to listen more, ask better questions. Say, so what I hear you saying is blank. Is that correct? So if this changed, would everything else be okay? Ask more and better questions. And let me give you one more distinction on objections. Actually, I'll give you about 5 more. Yeah, here's the next one. Know the difference between 2 kinds of objections. So the first kind of objection is like the one where you walk into the store, somebody asks you for help and you just say no. A lot of us, especially in this part of the world, we're trained to just say no the first time somebody asks us something, right? Somebody calls you on the phone and they go, hey, are you interested in free gold? We go, no. It's like it's our first instinct, right? So the first objection usually isn't an objection. It's just our natural thing. The second kind of objection usually is the real objection or the real question. So learn to know the distinction between a just instinctive no and an objection no. Make sense? All right, here's the next thing on objections. Look for the weak spots in your presentations. So too often we get an objection in an area of our presentation or an area of our conversation that we're not prepared to have. So, right, we sit down with people and we don't have a well thought out presentation, whether you're presenting a loan options to somebody or presenting a listing presentation, whatever it is, or you're presenting a new home plans. Too often what happens is because there's a weak spot in our presentation or because we're concerned about something. I remember when I was a new agent, I was so nervous about people asking me about commission. But the problem is they kept asking me about commission. Yet what I realized is that was a weak spot in my presentation. So instead of being like, hey, here's my commission rate, and then going to the next thing, I would lay it out like, here's my commission rate, right? No, I made it so weird, right? And then they would ask a question about it. Then it became an issue. And yet I was bringing it up. So if you keep getting the same objections over and over, it's probably a revelation that there's a weak spot in your presentation that you need to firm up. Agreed? Okay, here's the next thing. When we talk about objections, here's one of the keys that I want you to get underneath this. No matter what business you're in, what I want you to get underneath this is be prepared. Right? Insecurity or comes from nervousness, comes from lack of preparation. Right? It's funny. Sometimes people go to they look at doctors or brain surgeons or whatever. Those guys, how do you do that? Right? How can you open up somebody's brain and just go for it? Well, the reality is it is not the first time they've done that. They prepared over and over and over and over and over for that moment. Does that make sense? And yet sometimes in this business where we're making incredible amounts of money, we don't prepare for objections. We don't prepare for the stuff. And yet the reality is you're probably going to get, no matter what industry you're in, you're probably going to get the same 4 or 5 objections over and over and over. And it blows my mind that people will be in this business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and still be nervous about objections. Are you crazy? That would be like, hey, by the way, if you worked at a store and they go, all of our customers, our thousands of customers are going to ask you 5 questions. Here's the answers. It would be crazy not to just learn those answers. Being in real estate, we know that we're going to get 4 or 5 objections over and over. You're going to get an objection about the commission, right? Why should I pay? We don't want to pay a 6 or 7% commission. Well, shouldn't you know how to answer that question? And here's what's amazing. There's lots of different ways to answer that question. And yet you only probably need to know 1 or 2, yet learn those, ingrain them in your mind. So somebody says, I don't want to pay that commission. You go, perfect. Right? That's great. What concerns you about that commission rate? Or what I hear you saying is you want to net the most amount of money. Or what? Because when somebody says they don't want to pay that commission, what's the question they're asking? What they're really saying is, why is it worth it to me to give you this much money? Or somebody says, we want you to do this kind of marketing, and you go, perfect. And this is where I'm going to give you one of my favorite objection handlers. So even if you don't know the perfect objection handlers, these are the 1 or 2 that handle everything else. One of my favorites is feel, felt, found. And I don't know where it came from originally. It's been around forever. And yet feel, felt, found is beautiful. So somebody comes to you and they go, right, I don't want to, I want you to market in this magazine. I want you to pay all this money to put our house in this magazine every single month. And you go, I love that. I've actually had a lot of clients that have felt that. I understand that you feel that way. You feel like this would be a great way to market your home. I've had other clients that have felt that way. And yet what they found is the best use of our marketing dollar was doing this, this, and this. That feel, felt, found is brilliant. I understand that you feel like going with a discount brokerage, whatever it is going to be the best thing for you and your family. And I've actually had other clients that have felt that way. And yet what they found was that a discounted commission really meant a discounted service, meant that person didn't know how to negotiate, right? One of my favorite ones for objections is somebody says, well, this other realtor said that they would do it for, half the price, right? 4%, 3%, whatever it is. You're going, wow. Isn't it interesting that person just showed you their negotiation techniques? What they just showed you is their best negotiation strategy is just cut the price. And if that's how they handle their money, how do you think they're going to handle yours? So when a buyer brings an offer to you, how do you think they're going to negotiate for your money? See, one of the greatest things I do is fight for your money. And I'm going to fight for my family and my money just like I'm going to fight for yours, which is why you're going to net more money by working with me. See, if I just have 2 or 3 great answers to every single objection, then I can move forward in a powerful way. Make sense? So your challenge is, right, moving forward, if you hear an objection, maybe for the first time, maybe for the second time, right, go find 2 or 3 simple answers to that objection. Write them down and never be afraid of that objection ever again. Here's what's funny. I always told the agents that worked for me is I would say, I'm 100% okay with you not knowing how to handle an objection once. Like, I'm totally okay with you getting on the phone, someone saying something to you you've never heard before, and having one of those oh crap moments, going like, I have no idea what to say. I'm totally okay with if you do that once. What I'm not okay with is if you allow that to happen over and over. So right when I was selling real estate at a high level, if I ever got a weird objection, right? Like every once in a while you get something weird, right? Like we have 2 giraffes in the garage, right? Right. I go, cool, never heard that objection before. I'm going to go ask 4 or 5 other agents, or I'm going to go research this out. I'm going to find a way to handle that question from now on out. So I'm never afraid of that objection again. You squash the fear by being prepared. We're talking about objections and rejection. And yet one of the interesting things is that oftentimes bleeds into how we take care of our database. So many of us, we have these amazing people that we've done business with before, that know us and like us and trust us. And yet we know the stats prove it all day long that people, especially our past clients, people in our database would give us referrals. They would give us business if only we asked. They would do business with us if only we reminded them who we are. It's amazing. There was a study done by the National Association of Realtors. And what the study showed was I think it was like 80%, 76 to 80% of clients said, I would use my realtor again, right? I love them, right? They did a great job. I would use them again. What was mind-blowing is year after year, the study didn't change. The numbers stayed almost exactly the same. The sad part was 80% of people said that they would use their realtor again. And only like 8 or 9%, depending on the year the study was done, right, said that they actually did use their realtor again. And here's why. They just forgot who they were, right? They literally go, I would use my realtor again if I could just remember their name, right? And what that says is, it didn't say that we did a bad job when we worked with them. It says we've done a terrible job of keeping up with them. If you want to build an incredible business, you build an incredible database, a group of people that you go, look, these are my people. These are either my past clients or my sphere of influence. And I'm going to take such great care of these people. I'm going to build a fence around them. I'm going to put them in a great place. I'm going to build a fence around them. I'm going to keep them safe from the other people that may not give them as great a service, or the other people that may screw them over, right? I'm going to build a fence around these people. I'm going to this is my tribe. These are people I'm going to take care of. I don't want to be their realtor or their lender for a moment. I want to be their lender, their realtor, their home builder, their roofer, whatever, for life. I want to take care of these people forever. Yet the sad part is we don't take care of them. We don't keep up with those people. What we know is if you want your database to send you referrals, if you want your database to use you in the future, if you want your database to remember who you are, you've got to be in contact with them. You've got to send them something in the mail or an email or something at least twice a month. And yet here's the real key. The real key that I'm going to get at you is you've got to call them 4 times a year, minimum. You've got to reach out over the phone 4 times a year to build a relationship with them. And yet most people don't do that. And there's two reasons they don't do that. One is it's lack of a system. In other words, they go, like, I know I was supposed to do that, yet it wasn't in my calendar. I didn't know when I was supposed to do it, whatever. And yet the bigger reason oftentimes underneath everything is the fear. They go, I don't know what I would say. They go, it's been 5 years since I called them. What do I say now? It's the fear of calling them. So here's what I'm going to ask you. There's two big things around this that are going to be huge. One of the reasons we were fearful of calling our database, and I did a video about this a little while ago, is one of the reasons we're afraid of calling our database is it feels like a booty call. Right? Because we go, hey, I haven't talked to them for 3 years, 5 years. We call them, we go, hey, this is Wayne. Do you want to sell your house? Like, that feels so weird, right? It feels like you're booty calling your database. So stop booty calling your database. Build a freaking relationship. Flirt a little bit, all right? So what I want you to do is I want you to find a systematic way. I want you to call your database 4 times a year, minimum 4 times a year. And yet here's what you got to do. I want you to pre-plan what those calls are going to be. Here's the action item I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to go get one of those big calendars, right? Get one of those big like desktop calendars that have all the months of the year on it. I want you to get that calendar, and then I want you to write on there your marketing plan, your call plan. I want you to go on there, and I want you to write down each quarter when you've got to call your database and what you're going to call them about. I want you to pre-plan this. People go, I have no idea what I would call my database about. Well, let's freaking figure it out. There's several great reasons to call your database, right? One of them may be you're doing a event during the year, right? You're doing an event for your database, like a client appreciation party, or you're sponsoring, music in the park, whatever it is. Another reason to call your database, maybe we're doing a coat drive. We just wanted to see if you had any coach you wanted to donate. Another reason to call your database, maybe, look, I'm working, like we talked about the other day, building our service provider list. That'd be a great reason to call your database. Or just call them and go, you know what? We're going into fall. Most people need to get their heating system or cooling system checked. I've got a great person. I just want to see if you had any questions, right? Here's another thing. When you're thinking about these calls, what I want you to do is I want you to think about, how do I take care of the people that are in my database and protect them? Right. So instead of sending them to Zillow, I've got to have a great place for them to go. Instead of sending them to Angie's List, I want you to become the Angie's List for your database. When they think of, I need a plumber, I want you to train them that you have a great list, that you can take care of them. So instead of them going somewhere else, they come to you. You become the hub for everything they need. Does that make sense? So, and here's another thing on this side, and then let me give you one more. The fourth call every year is going to be a more direct call. The fourth call year is I just want to make sure I'm taking care of you. Do you have any real estate needs this year? And you don't need to get weird about it. Just ask them a great question. I care enough about you to call you and see if you need any help this year. So you've got to make 4 calls a year. Now, let's back up for a second and let's imagine that you haven't called them for like 6 years, right? I know most of us that have been in this business a while, you have like that handful of clients you haven't called for like a decade, and you're going, I know I should call them, and yet I feel so awkward calling them because it's been so long. So let me give you a couple tips on this. First off, most of them are not sitting at home going, I can't believe he hasn't called me. What a jerk. They're not thinking about it. It's not like they wake up every night thinking about it. They're just going to be happy when you call them. I can't tell you how many people I've called years later and go, hey, my script was always like, I was driving past your house the other day and I thought, I can't believe I haven't talked to you more. I've thought about you several times yet. I can't believe I haven't talked to you more. And I didn't want any more time to go by before I reached out and just ask how you're doing. So when you're making these, especially these initial calls, if it's been 5, 6, 10, 20 years, don't get weird, okay? Like, don't make it a booty call. Don't go, hey, I was just calling to see if you want to start a house the next day, right? Screw that. I want you to call them and just be human. I want you to just call and say hi. It's just that simple. That's the best script you'll ever learn. Hi. I want you to call them and go, you know what? I just wanted to call and say hi. I know it's been a long time. I just wanted to check in with you and see how life is. How are the kids? How is your world? How is business? Whatever it is. And just let them talk. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not intentional. Here's the brilliance of this. You're going to call them and just say hi, see how they're doing, catch up. Now, they're probably going to ask you, how are you? They're going to ask you, how are you? How is business? Whatever. And when they ask you that question, I want you to imagine that this is your moment, that the light from heaven has shone down upon you. And this is the moment for you to give an incredible answer, for you to tell a story. I don't want you to go, there's that script that was going around years ago that was like, somebody says, hey, how's business? You go, it's good. Why do you ask? It just made it weird, right? So when they say, how are you? How's business? I want you to tell them a great story. Now here, every great story has a couple elements, right? Every great story has a villain. Right? There was a villain, there was a problem, and there was a hero. So I want you to tell them a story that sticks with them. So in other words, somebody goes, we're doing awesome. Life is good. The kids are good. How are you? How's business? I'm going to go, It's awesome. I love what I'm doing. Last week, I was actually able to help this couple. They had their home on the market before and it didn't sell, and they listed with me. And what's amazing is I walked them through my process, and we were able to get their home sold. Right, there was a villain, the market, whatever, or I go, I was able to help this. There was I'm loving business. Last week, I was able to help this client. Right, these new first-time home buyers, they didn't think they'd get in the home. They were struggling with their down payment. We figured out how to structure a certain way that they could buy the house, and they're closing next week. I love what I do. So instead of making it weird, just tell them a great story. Tell them a story about the kind of clients you want to work with in the future. Right? Make sure it's a real story. And yet tell them a story about how there was a villain and you were the hero and you're helping people move forward. They will not forget the story. And then commit to following up with them in the future. Get out that marketing calendar. Go, I'm going to call everyone in my database 4 times a year. Here's the reasons I'm going to call them. Make it simple so you can actually execute on it. Yet the reality is most people are not taking care of their database. What I'm going to say, one of my favorite little affirmations is, I take care of my database and my database will take care of me. If I take great care of my database will take care of me and my family. If I give them value, if I reach out to them, if I remind them who I am, if I do it systematically, right, my database will take care of me for life. Don't be one of those salespeople for a minute. Be their consultant, be their value consultant for life. And that makes all the difference. Okay. So I trust you got something out of this. I trust that you're going to take some of what we talked about in step 5 here and go implement it into your business. So reframe how you think about rejection. Right? Learn to move through objections. And then objections really are just questions. And then make a concrete plan, a written down plan of how you're going to take care of your database moving forward so you can build a business that lasts generations. All right, so that was step 5. So I will see you on step 6, where we talk about how to take care of customers on a whole new level, how to create customers for life, and then how to follow up with some of those initial leads that come in and actually get them. Because I'll tell you what, the gold is in the follow-up. See you at step 6.